Hello, it's Melinda Jennison from Streamline Property Buyers, and this is the market update for the data up to the end of November 2024. First of all, looking at Brisbane listing volumes, total listings in Brisbane actually did escalate throughout November, so we saw more properties available for sale. However, as you can see, based on the long-term trend, we're still between 25 and 30% below our long-term listing values. So there's not a lot of stock available to buy. And this is what is putting pressure on prices across the city in a state where we've got strong buyer demand. Sales volumes up 6.1% compared to 12 months ago. And this is an indication of that buyer demand. So it does give us some confirmation that there's still more buyers today than there were 12 months ago. The demand for buyers is still strong with auction clearance rates. They did slip slightly throughout November. As you can see there, the trend from September, October and November sitting somewhere between 58 and 60% clearance rates, which is above the long-term average for Brisbane, but definitely below what it has been during the peak season of growth. Days on market currently at 22 days. 12 months ago, this was 19 days. So you can see that the market is a slightly slower moving market than it was this time last year. Looking at the results from CoreLogic for all dwellings, you can see up to the end of November, Brisbane shifted 0.6%. This is in contrast to the likes of Sydney and Melbourne, which showed negative price growth across the month of November. The quarterly growth for dwellings, 1.8%, and annual growth sitting at 12.1% for Brisbane. Home price growth for Proptrack data in Brisbane, again, all dwellings. This data shows it shifted 0.3% and annual growth sitting at 12.6%. So the same trend being shown by that Proptrack data. When we look at price growth by market segment, you can see there the more affordable end of the market has shifted much faster than the most expensive end of the market. So 3.9% growth in the 3 months up to the end of October in the cheapest part of the market, the lowest 25% of property values, and 1.8% growth in the most expensive part of the market, or those properties that are in the top 25% of property values. Looking at national trends, you can see there Brisbane in third place in terms of annual changes in price growth behind Perth and Adelaide. And that's in stark contrast to the growth that's been experienced in many other capital city markets around Australia. Looking at the 3-month comparison, you can see their quarterly growth up to the end of November for Perth at 3%, Adelaide 2.8%, and Brisbane at 1.8%, whereas other capital city markets are well below this or even in negative growth territory. Looking at house values now, so single dwellings shifted 0.6% in the month of November in Brisbane. That put annual price growth at 11% for houses on single lots. And again, that's in stark contrast to many other capital city markets, which you can see have moved into negative growth territory. Perth still the leader, and Adelaide's close behind as well in terms of that monthly rate of growth. Proptrack also showed positive growth in Brisbane for the month of November, 0.3% price change, and annual growth at 11.8%. Looking at unit values, and this segment of the market has really continued to outperform here in Brisbane, 0.8% growth in the month of November, quarterly growth sitting at 2.7% according to that CoreLogic data. And annually, we've seen 18% price growth over the last 12 months in Brisbane units. Now, that's in stark contrast once again to Sydney and Melbourne, where growth's been negative 2.3% annually in Melbourne and 2.5% growth in Sydney. So huge differences in capital city markets in terms of the annual growth performance in that unit segment of the market. When we're looking at Proptrack data, the units showed 0.2% growth in November. So again, the same positive growth trend, and you can see 16.8% growth highlighted there in that Proptrack data on an annual basis. When we look at the trends in terms of unit price growth and house price growth here in Brisbane, we can see here the monthly change in values for both segments of the market. The houses are the dark bars, the units are the light blue bars. What is evident from this graph is the rate of growth is slowing in both segments of the market. You can see the housing segment has been on a downward spiral since mid-year in terms of the rate of growth, but growth is still positive month on month. Now, the unit market held up for a little bit longer, but in the last 5 months, we have seen that slowdown in the rate of growth in the unit segment of the market as well. So this is obviously in line with the fact that we've got higher interest rates, the cost of living is higher, and people are starting to feel the pinch. So potentially this is putting a brake in terms of how fast and how aggressively the market is growing on a month-by-month basis. But as you can see there, the growth is still positive in both segments of the market every single month. Looking at 12-month value changes for houses and units now, according to CoreLogic, and this is looking at each of the capital city markets. So you can see there Brisbane's housing market hasn't performed as strongly as the unit market. Our unit market's performing on par with Adelaide's unit market, but in Perth, you can see both the house market and the unit market have outperformed Brisbane in terms of that 12-month value change. Looking at the 3-month value change, you can see that Brisbane's market has slowed down a lot more rapidly than the likes of Adelaide and Perth, but we are starting to see that deceleration in price growth in these two segments of the market as well. In contrast, you've got Sydney, Melbourne and other areas that are already in that negative price growth in that 3-monthly value change. So this is data, again, up to the end of November 2024. Looking at vacancy rates in Brisbane, we've got vacancy rates sitting at 1.1% in November. Very little change over the last 12 months. Vacancy have sat between 1 and 1.1% across the entire year of 2024. So still really tight vacancy. And of course, where we've got affordability in that rental market, we are still seeing the rate of rent increase, although rent price growth is easing. So in the housing market, we've seen 3.6% price growth over the last 12 months. That has slowed down a lot compared to where we were sitting in terms of that annual growth rate 12 months ago. We're in double-digit growth. In the unit market, 3.6% annual changes in rents there as well. So tenants will definitely be pleased to know that that rate of growth is slowing in both segments of the market. When we look at the outlook for Brisbane, we may refer to what are people predicting. This is Louis Christopher's Housing Boom and Bust report looking forward into 2025. And you can see there the prediction is for Brisbane to grow between 9 and 14% if we see a scenario where rates are cut between 25 and 50 basis points by mid-2025, which is the most likely scenario. So there's still very positive growth prescribed or forecast for Brisbane over the next 12 months. In terms of our outlook, we as a market in Brisbane, it does continue to stand out as one of the top performers across Australia's capital city markets. There's solid fundamentals in place as well, which do position Brisbane well for continued price growth into the future. And we do expect that price growth will continue, although we do admit that the rate of growth will occur at a slower pace. And that's simply because of affordability constraints that are starting to play out in some segments of our market here in Brisbane. If you would like to connect with us, we offer a full buyer's agency service as well as property investment advice for investors looking to purchase strategic investments here in Brisbane. You can scan this QR code. It's going to connect you with some very relevant resources that will add value for us. And if you'd like to reach out or book a call with our team, you can do so through this QR code as well. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again soon.